welcome to a very special day here in Memphis and a special day here at FedEx Forum. Coming up, the 20th annual Earl Lloyd Sports Legacy Symposium presented by the Hyde Family Foundation. Honorees Tommy Smith, Amari Stoudemire, Cheryl Miller. And then we got the 23rd annual Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration basketball game with the Grizzlies and the Timberwolves. Hi, everyone. I'm Rob Fisher. Brevin Knight is alongside. Always a special day. We got three great honorees today. What are you looking forward to?
The biggest thing is we always say at this point in time, we always want to hear people's stories. How did Dr. King enlighten their lives? How did he affect their lives? How do they continue to live in his way? And so it would be especially happy to hear what these three honorees have to say.
And I always enjoy hearing the stories about them visiting the National Civil Rights Museum as well. Well, it's all coming your way now. Let's get to the practice court and welcome in your host for today, the television voice of your Memphis Grizzlies, Pete Pranica.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 20th annual Earl Lloyd Sports Legacy Symposium presented by the Hyde Family Foundation. I'm Grizzlies television play-by-play announcer Pete Pranica. I'll be your moderator this afternoon, and I want to welcome all of you here to the Built Ford Tough Practice Facility, and also welcome those of you who are watching on FanDuel Sports Network Southeast. Every year before the symposium, I like to read through some of Dr. King's writings and pull a quote that we might want to reflect on this very important day. And the quote that I chose today is this. Dr. King wrote, change does not roll in on the wheels of inevitability, but it comes through continuous struggle. And so we must straighten our backs and work for our freedom. Through our symposium today and the National Civil Rights Sports Museum Legacy Award, we recognize our honorees' dedication and contributions in the spirit of Dr. King to civil and human rights, the social justice movement, and serving as an example for future leaders through their careers in sports. Now, on the subject of future leaders, we'll be hearing from some. The winners of the 2024 Keeper of the Dream Award, they are here to share their thoughts on Dr. King's legacy and their own personal contributions to social justice. To introduce those students, please welcome the president of the National Civil Rights Museum, Dr. Russ Wigginton.
Thank you so much, Pete, and it's an honor to be with you all today. What really makes me excited is I'm with young talent, leaders of tomorrow, actually leaders of today, and we're going to hear from these leaders of today. The Keeper of the Dream Award it really symbolizes the power of youth and their work ethic and their desire to make a difference in their community, and so I'm honored to be here with these three outstanding individuals. To my immediate left is I'm going to introduce each of them and then ask them to speak to the amazing work they've done. To my immediate left is Corey Mitchell Irby II. Corey is a East T-STEM Academy High School senior. He has led an East Campus cleanup with two classmates, Memphis Beautiful and East High's PTO. The goal of the cleanup project was to ensure the students had equal access to clean and healthy learning environments. Corey has helped open paths of communication between students and staff, leading the students that they receive more services and resources as they matriculate. Next to Corey is Maria Fernanda Machado. Maria is a senior at Central High School and is a dedicated leader and advocate committed to service and academic excellence. As a student attorney for Youth Court Services since 2022, she has fought for civil rights and social justice, earning recognition in the Daily Memphian. She founded Soy Mia, a nonprofit providing free menstrual products across Memphis focused on the Hispanic community. Next to Maria is Adaria Crutcher, who's a senior at White Station High School. And Adaria is committed to providing a safe environment for students struggling with their mental health. She and two peers created Story Unfinished to support students who experience suicidal thoughts. Amazing, talented, dedicated Memphian young people. Let's give them a round of applause. So I'm going to start with Corey. One of the things that I found so similar to the power of athletic prowess and achievement is the kind of work ethic and perseverance that it takes to lead and guide a project. Corey, could you speak about your work at East, T-STEM Academy, and your leadership accomplishments?
Yes, sir. So my name is Corey. Very nice to meet you all. I led 2 community cleanup initiatives at East High School. The first one was just called the East High Community Cleanup, and the second one was called the Get Paid Initiative Community Cleanup, which was actually done in commemoration of young Daw's legacy. The 2 projects were very fun to execute. I think the biggest thing that kind of led to us fostering the project was just having an idea of how it would look and how we want people to feel when they read about the project. Some of the things you kind of think about when you want to lead a project are like, how do you want it to be remembered? What messages do you want it to convey? And, just how do you want it to feel? And so I think the biggest thing was kind of always being open to constructive criticism when people told you, okay, you can do this better, or you can communicate this better to people, or you can organize this a little bit better, because at the end of the day, efficiency is everything, and it's kind of hard to lead people when we don't have a common goal in mind. And so, every day my partners and I, we just kept on going at it and improving it day by day, and before you know it, we had 2 projects under our belt, so, yeah.
All right, Corey, well done. Thank you. Maria.
So personally, in my experience, this really started with a club I co-founded at my school. We really wanted to have free period products in all the girls' restrooms because sometimes they didn't have access to it, or other times they were just afraid, because there was this sign in our restroom saying that if you needed some, you could ask for the teachers, but sometimes in a situation you don't want to ask. You just want them to have availability. So currently at Central, we have, I think, about 12 restrooms that all have tampons and pads, and we restock them weekly, and we do everything. And we really do have to persevere in the way that it is a public thing, and sometimes people do take advantage of that, and they do, mess things up or, physically break things. But the club and I, we're really just trying to focus on making things better. And when I leave Central, I really want to make sure that this is something that continues.
That's great. Thank you. That spirit of making things better for your fellow citizen, your fellow human. I love that. Thank you so much. So, Adaria, could you talk about your work at White Station High School?
Hi, my name is Adaria, and I founded Story Unfinished with 2 of my friends. 4 years ago this month, my dad passed away. Actually, yesterday was his birthday. But after his passing, it really opened my eyes to how bad mental health can get for people. I found myself very sad, and it was hard for me to really understand how to deal with my emotions. As I started high school and continued through my years, I realized that a lot of people at my school also felt sad, and they also felt that nobody else understood them. And thinking back to how I once felt after my dad's passing, I didn't want anybody else to feel so alone, because the most opening part of my grief was talking to people that understood my pain. So me and my 2 other friends, we created Story Unfinished, our school's first mental health account, to give students throughout our school a voice and to let them know that their story matters. Story Unfinished's goal is to remind every student that they have a story worth continuing, that their life is important, that they shouldn't let their thoughts take over their world, that there's still hope out there. And we've created over 100 posts. We've created lots of community service events. We've had slime making sessions, yoga sessions, painting sessions, just events that children love, and it allows them to just interact with their peers and feel a sense of happiness, because it's hard when you feel that nobody else understands you, when you feel all alone. So Story Unfinished is really just giving a voice to those who feel that nobody understands them. And it's nice to see that we've really made a difference throughout our school and throughout our community.
Very good. Excellent. So I'd like to follow up with a question for either of you or all three of you if you'd like to answer. One of the things that we think a lot about at the National Civil Rights Museum is how do we make sure that our young people today understand and appreciate the legacy of the civil rights movement, all of the sacrifice that was made historically, and how to make sure that you understand it and your peers understand it, but also how does it apply to your lives today? Do you all I know you all have thought about that. Would love to hear your thoughts about how to make sure that we do that so that the movement lives on and we continue to reach our full potential as a society.
So I think the National Civil Rights Museum is doing a great job of educating people about the history and legacy of the whole movement in its entirety. Things like this and, commemorating MLK are very important because they expose young people to like the history that they come from, especially young black people. I'm very proud to be a young black man and kind of look up to people like MLK and yourself and other people who have done great things in history and kind of who have changed the narrative about how black men can be perceived, in society. I think it's very important, like I said, to just educate the youth on where they come from and how impactful the civil rights movement was because, things like this might not have been possible without the Civil Rights Museum and the movement itself. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you, Corey.
Yeah, so in terms of like civil rights, to me, civil just comes from the word civic, which really means people. And if anything, it just means fighting for some type of people. You're fighting for women, you're fighting for men, you're fighting for African Americans, for Hispanics. You're fighting for someone. So really, the Martin Luther King's Jr.'s legacy is really just for you to keep standing up and for you to keep fighting and for you to keep being loud, to keep screaming, and for you to get noticed. So.
Great, thank you. Adaria?
How I see it, MLK's dream was for all of us to be in this room together, despite our skin, despite our gender, we're all able to be in here together for the same overall goal. And I feel that MLK, he dreamed of equality. All three of us in different ways, we have fought for equality throughout our school and throughout our community. And I feel that that's what MLK wanted. He wanted all of us to be able to live a life where we don't feel like our skin color limits us. When I founded Story Unfinished, I didn't feel that my skin color limited me. I felt that even though I am a young black girl, and even though maybe 60 years ago I wouldn't have been able to strive for as many things as I'm able to, that I can still make a difference in my community. We can all still make a difference in our community, even as minorities, even though we are black, even though we are Hispanic, we can still strive for greatness. And that's what MLK's dream was, that no matter what, no matter the setbacks we face, no matter anything that life throws at us, we can still push through and persevere.
Thank you so much. Beautifully spoken by these wonderful Keepers of the Dream recipients. And ladies and gentlemen, I think our future is in great hands with talented people like this. Give them another round of applause.
Dr. Wigginton and panel, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. We really greatly appreciate your presence here today and your leadership among young people. We're going to pause here for a moment, and when we come back, we'll introduce you to the 2025 National Civil Rights Museum Sports Legacy Award winners. Welcome back to the Earl Lloyd Sports Legacy Symposium presented by the Hyde Family Foundation. It is now my immense pleasure to introduce our Sports Legacy Award honorees. Tommy Smith is most remembered, along with his Olympic teammate John Carlos, for their medal podium protest at the 1968 Mexico City Games. It should not be forgotten, however, that Smith set a world record of 19.83 seconds in the 200-meter race at those games. It was the first time that the 20-second mark was broken officially. It was a record that would stand for nearly 11 years. He is also the only man in the history of track and field to hold 11 world records simultaneously. He would go on to play 3 seasons of professional football with the Cincinnati Bengals. Later, a teacher and coach at Oberlin College and at Santa Monica College, he dedicated 37 years to educating and coaching young people. He has dedicated his life to championing the cause of oppressed people. Beyond his decades of human rights activism, Smith, through the Tommy Smith Youth Initiative, is dedicated to nurturing the health, fitness, and educational development of youth. Tommy believes that through the disciplined training required by track and field, athletics can serve as an effective vehicle for mentoring youth. Let's welcome Tommy Smith.
Yeah.
Amar'e Stoudemire is an NBA legend who made history as the first player to win Rookie of the Year straight out of high school. Over his illustrious career, he became a 6-time NBA All-Star, a U.S. Olympian, and a 5-time All-NBA selection. At just 21 years old, Amar'e founded the Amar'e Stoudemire Foundation, dedicated to breaking the cycle of poverty through education. He has also served as a Goodwill Ambassador for Sierra Leone and is the author of the acclaimed Stat book series. As an African-American Jewish man, Amar'e lives by the principles of the Torah, embodying its values in his daily life. Please welcome Amar'e Stoudemire.
Yes.
Olympic gold medalist, head coach, sportscaster, and one of the top 5 women's collegiate basketball players in NCAA history, Cheryl Miller is a basketball legend who helped popularize and elevate the women's game. Miller led the USC Trojans to a 112-20 record and 2 back-to-back NCAA titles in '83 and '84. That was an NCAA first. She was named tournament MVP both years, and in the international arena, Miller led the U.S. women's basketball team to gold medals in the 1983 Pan American Games, the 1984 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles, and the 1986 Goodwill Games in Moscow as the U.S. team broke the Soviet Union's 152-game winning streak. When knee injuries cut her professional career short, Miller turned to coaching as head coach for USC, Langston University, Cal State LA, and the WNBA's Phoenix Mercury, where she also served as the team's general manager, becoming the first person to serve in both capacities in the history of professional basketball. She also served as a basketball analyst and commentator for ABC, ESPN, TBS, and TNT, becoming the first female analyst to call a nationally televised NBA game in November of 1996. Miller's recognition includes induction into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame, the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame, the FIBA Hall of Fame, and the California Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, Cheryl Miller.
Love you too.
First of all, congratulations to all of you on the award. We are thrilled to have you here in Memphis on this most monumental day. Whenever I do this, I always like to get a sense of how you learned about Dr. King and his teaching. Now, Tommy, you were essentially a contemporary of Dr. King. So tell us more about your experience as a young man growing up with the philosophy and the teachings of Dr. King and what resonated most with you.
Well, my background, and I'm very proud to be here, by the way, folks, thank you. A background is of Texas, of state of Texas. And out of 14 kids, my mother and dad, we were the laborers. And of course, my school didn't really teach the truth about the emptiness in society concerning the need for black folks to maintain the idea of equity or equality. And so I began to kind of read, move around, and learn about my background. And since I am a contemporary, being Californian, Dr. Martin Luther King was my top idealistic move to do something out of a family of 14, because we didn't have the schools. We fought to become an entity in society that recognized the humanistic attitude of being somebody. I am somebody. So when I heard this man in the streets of San Francisco, Los Angeles, especially in the South, I put my emptiness in my back pocket and start filling my front pocket with the judiciary idea of moving forward without any backlash on myself, but the sacrifice to make things happen. And as I grew older, became a school teacher, I began to bring young kids into the educational process of somebody, to listen before they act. So I'm very proud to do what God has given me, the idealistic powers to maintain the quality of freedom. Thank you.
Very well said. Amari, obviously you didn't have the benefit of being a contemporary of Dr. King. So when did you first come upon his teachings, and what impressed you most?
I was young actually when I actually heard Dr. King, and I was more so trying to figure out, my particular way of living. And I was researching a lot of leaders that were powerful and impactful leaders before my time. And Dr. King was one of the leaders that I gravitated to because of his wording and what he was saying and his speeches that he gave over, right? And so I used a lot of that information that I've learned from Dr. King and applied it to myself.
Amen.
Cheryl, what about you?
I'm pretty much the same. With Amari, it's growing up in school, Black History Month and mom and dad, and getting bits and pieces and snippets of history. And Dr. King, it wasn't until obviously when you get older and you're able to do your own research and you live and you learn. But what I was most struck by was his age, 39. And what was I doing at the age of 39? And to be that poised and wise beyond his years is amazing.
It really and truly is remarkable that at that young age that he had such incredible sway and such incredible power. And Tommy, the lasting image, obviously, from 1968 is the photo of you and John Carlos on the medal stand. People know that. They don't necessarily know the backstory because you were involved in an organization that at one point was saying we shouldn't even go to the Olympic Games in 1968. Can you give us a little backstory about how that came about? Because I know that you were concerned about what was going on in Rhodesia. You were concerned about the treatment of Muhammad Ali and other things. Can you give us some detail on that?
Yeah, I wish I could give you the detail, but it was a trial and error for me. I was in college. And could you believe I was also ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps? Yeah. And I said, what am I doing? But I realized the travesty of the Vietnamese War, and I wanted an education. The Olympic Project for Human Rights, OPHR, I joined, of course, started by Dr. Harry Edwards, who's still living. We decided that there was more to do in the system of education than running world records on the track. But I was on scholarship. You know scholarship. If you don't, they're going to take that ship away from you. And that scholarship is going to be on yourself. And we didn't have the finances, so I had to organize. Being a little church kid, the little junior deacon, I had to maintain, especially Hebrew 11:1, faith. What is it? The subject of things hoped for.
Evidence of things not seen.
That's what I'm talking. Y'all need to be up here. So I just moved forward, kept moving forward, breaking world records, raising my hand, getting off the track, and I didn't have time to talk. Like I'm running my lips now. My wife's probably telling me, "Shut up, Tommy. Just go ahead on and do what you got to do." But I moved through a lot of emptiness in my life. But the Olympic Project for Human Rights got me on that victory stand, and I kept breaking world records. And I ran that final race with the pull muscle. Now you tell me there ain't no God if you don't, So I'm gonna quit now, and y'all bring me something to eat. I'm hungry.
We'll definitely have something for you, Tommy. Cheryl, do you remember specific moments of being discriminated or marginalized because of your race as a young black woman?
Never. I'm messing with you. We don't have enough time, but
What you mean?
of course, even in Riverside, California, basically being raised in kind of a, I don't know if everybody remember or anybody remembers the Andy Griffith Show. Well, I grew up in Mayberry, something very similar. And of course, I was called the N-word, a nigger. And I didn't understand what the word meant at the time until my parents sat me down and told me. And once I found out, then I wanted to fight everybody. And of course, that was another conversation that led to, it's just a name. It's just a name. It doesn't define you. It's not who you are. And I was more offended, forget being called a nigger, being called a tomboy was worse. Only because I was better than all the males growing up, you know. So if you're gonna call me something, you gotta choose your words correctly. But of course, it was, my parents did an excellent job of raising all my brothers and my sister, and with the understanding, yes, it hurts, but that word doesn't define you.
Mm-hmm. Amari, what about you? What experiences have you had where you have been marginalized, and how did you respond?
I mean, I grew up in Florida, right? And I moved around a lot. I grew up in Florida. I was born in Florida. I moved to New York and these things. And I think during high school, I had a moment of somewhat of a discrimination that happened. And I was one of the top players in the country, and we had what's it called? The guy that runs the sports in the schools. And he had this big belt buckle on, the cowboy hat, and he sees me in school, and he tells me, you know, a few words that I didn't like. But it wasn't a lot of incidents where I had a lot of discriminations. I've always somewhat stayed, you know, to myself. I stayed focused on my goals and these things, and it kept me out of harm's way throughout most of my young career. So I didn't have too many experiences where it was rough for me.
Let's talk about the current state of events. Let's say Dr. King is here right now and he's looking at America 2025. Where do you think he would say, hey, we've made some progress and we got a ways to go yet? What do you think Dr. King would say?
Well, I know he'd first and foremost say, oh my gosh, Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, you go, girls. You can't tell me Dr. King. Dr. King, I'd have to believe he was a baller. He was a baller. But I think he would be pleased where women in general are at, where we are encouraged, fired up to go, and would be impressed by our passion, drive, and unity in whole, and where we want to go and who we're bringing in and how powerful, and we're using every form of our platforms together, and we're synchronized.
Amari or Tommy?
Yeah, I think there may be a conflict of interest with that, right? Because on one hand, we have a lot of successful young entrepreneurs that's taking advantage of the opportunities here in America. Then on the other hand, we have our youth that are a little bit out of control, right? And I think with our youth, with the lack of education, the lack of wanting to pursue greatness, whether it's in school, whether it's in becoming doctors, lawyers, and these things, we don't have that type of motivation right now in our communities, right? Everyone wants to be rappers, they want to, you know, be in the streets and all these things, and so it's a difficult situation right now for our youth. But on the other hand, there is a lot of successful young African-American entrepreneurs that are paving the way for their families. They're getting married, they're having children, and they're doing things the proper way, right? So I think it'll be a little conflict of interest if Dr. King was here today.
Then is the key really, Tommy, because you have been so heavily involved in education, is education going to be the key to address what Amari's talking about?
It's a big key. It has a lot of little trinkets in it to make the door open. And Amari and Cheryl is one of those trinkets in that key. They move, they open things, and the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. But that doesn't mean that you can't eat or you can't make your own little trinket in that key. So keep on moving, keep on turning the key. Don't let people fool you that you are not someone. I am somebody. And he will typically say in his words, move forward. Do not let trenches keep you from making your track in that key. And I think he will pull kids together by saying, education is your trench in that key. Don't forget to turn it as you move forward. And he was very allocated in his way of moving things, the way he talked, and the way he approached people. And I think we continually need to opt to the fact that moving forward is a task. Don't take a back seat because you're in this bus. At one time, that's all we could take. We move forward now through sacrifices. Let's keep on moving. Just don't drive the bus.
You've all taken leadership roles in social justice. Who were the people that you looked up to when you made this conscious decision that you are going to be an advocate for social justice? Who did you look up to? Dr. King obviously is up there, certainly, but are there other leaders that you have had in your life that you said, I want to be like that person, I want to have their impact on society? Amari?
For me, I think Dr. King obviously was one of them. One of the guys I studied. Bob Marley was another guy I studied. His music was always about prosperity and peaceful and how to move forward in life. I also studied a lot of John Lennon, to be honest with you. I thought his ideology was important to understand. So I think it's accumulation of all those people, and Tupac Shakur was another one. When I was young growing up, I took a lot of his positive words and applied the positivity that Tupac was saying, and I applied it to my life as well. And I think, with that being said, what I was able to do was dissect all of this learning, and I pulled the positivity out of all of it, right? And that's how I applied it to myself. Those were the guys that I looked up to growing up.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Cheryl?
There's so many Muhammad Ali and refusing to be pigeonholed or categorized. Althea Gibson, Arthur Ashe, Wilma Rudolph, Mom and Dad.
Mm-hmm.
Mom and Dad. My dad was in the Air Force, 6'5", and he always thought that I was saluting him, but I wasn't. It was because he was so tall and I was little. I'd always do this, and this is a great memory. My mother was a registered nurse, and she worked in convalescent homes, and there was something about her passion, not only of giving, but being of service. Being of service. How can I make you better? How can I pour whatever I have into you so that we both can succeed? It wasn't always what I could do for myself, where I could benefit, but how can I be a beneficiary and to help? And I think that's the reason why I gravitated to basketball. It's a team sport, and it's an iron sharpens iron. So everyone when I was growing up, my mom and dad really taught us that you can learn just about anything, good, bad, and indifferent. So that's how I've always tried to live my life to this day, and just be a sponge, and to wake up every day just a little more curious than yesterday.
A large part of that is having a servant heart, right?
It truly is. It truly is. And you know what? You're never too old to obtain that.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
A smile is free.
Right.
A smile is free.
Tommy, the people that you looked up to, I mean, obviously, like I said, you were a contemporary of Dr. King. Are there other leaders in your life, other people that you tried to emulate, whether it was your journey for civil and human rights or education, people that really, really touched your heart and wanted and enabled you to lead?
Well, these two young folks up here really answered my question for me. There's a plethora of things. I'm from the old school, and I don't know if you know I Was Born by the River. Who sang that? You better believe in a little tent, like I was. I've been running ever since. I've been doing that. My mom and my dad couldn't read. Mother had to tell him to do things other than sit at the table to eat. I had 12 brothers and sisters who was always there. I had cotton fields all around the house. There was hogs that ate better than I did. And so it's a plethora of things. And in singing, Daddy said, boy, you better learn how to sing them Christian songs and leave that he called it, that was his name for it. He called the songs that didn't have God in it. And so I learned from the old school, and I saw people growing up. And now I'm looking at people who are grown up who see what I didn't see. They're saying what I couldn't say, only heard, I couldn't repeat. So I continually grew, but my wheel was always rolling. It was always rolling forward. It never stopped, moving backward. And my wife can tell you, I keep bringing her up because she's a force of my strength to move forward. If I didn't have her, then my wheel would still move, but probably in the back. Dolores, I appreciate you, you know. So now you pay my $5 to you.
There you go.
We've talked about leaders and role models, people that you emulated. Where do you think each of you have made your biggest impact in advancing the cause of racial equality and social justice?
Silver and gold have I none, but such as I have, give I thee. I keep depending my moving forward on that. So that's something everybody can talk about. What you don't have, you probably won't get because you're not working hard enough to have it.
What about you, Amari? I know that you have worked to make sure that people have clean water, people have the resources they need to live productive lives. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, actually, I traveled to this town. It's called Freetown. It was in Sierra Leone. And this tribe was using their waste for water. And I discovered this device called Play Pump, where they can have this seesaw type of playground, and that seesaw pumps fresh water. So I was advised not to go. It was like so many red flags. There was a rebel breakout war 5 years prior, and there's a whole thing. I decided to go anyways. And I flew to London and then also connected over to Sierra Leone, and we drove through the jungles to Freetown, to the small village, and it was in the jungle. And we built this water well, and when that tribe of people discovered this fresh water, it was such a celebratory moment for them, right? And so it's little things like that that allows me to further my advocacy for peace and love around the world. And that's something that I continue to do until today.
Cheryl, what about you?
Wow, I'm in the beginning stages, so this is actually couldn't have been a better time to receive an award and to be in Memphis. In Memphis, you guys are just a baller city. I love everyone here. The city is so inspirational, but it's in the infancy stages of the Cheryl Miller Foundation. It's equality in women's sports. But I now know that I've got a lot of work to do, y'all. And I'm talking about the young girls and the hurdles and the obstacles that they are facing today. And it's all about economics and finances. And, you know, when I played, as long as you had a ball and some shoes, you could get it done. I played with the Kmart specials that looked like Adidas but had 20 stripes on the side, and you made it work. It was more sole and heels than anything else, and a couple of laces, and hey, that's what you ran with. But today, I can't afford a KD, shoes and these Legacy shoes and, Air Jordans and all the rest. And these young ladies are some young ladies who are homeless and trying to make that work. So I need to up my game and my strategy and lower my ears so I can hear what they need. And again, it comes back to being of service, and that's my goal. My goal is to level the playing field for everyone, for every young girl.
Cheryl, thank you for the great words about Memphis. This is one.
It's cold though. Come on, y'all.
It is, but it's a hard-working city, and one of the great gems of this city is the National Civil Rights Museum.
I agree.
And you all had the chance to tour it. I want to get each of your impressions. What resonated with you most when you walk through there? Because I tell everybody that comes to Memphis, you absolutely, positively have to see this museum. So, reflections?
I'll start it off because the biggest reflection for me was this young man right there, Tommy Smith. I was overwhelmed to begin with, and then watching on this wide screen, actually re-seeing it again, him standing up on the podium, and then Tommy in front of it and holding up his the first thing that popped in my head was, young man, would you have done it had you known the price that you would pay? Young man, who was there to hold you when your tears were shed? Young man, God bless you for the courage to take that stand. And to experience that, to watch this young man grow, come out of high school to be who he is as a young man. When I say that I've got to up my game, folks, I've got to up my game. And Memphis, thank you for blessing me so much for this opportunity to be here again. Thank you.
Mari, as you walked through the museum yesterday, what struck you the most?
Wow, it was so much to intake.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so much to intake. I was just going through the legacy of Dr. King when it started, and how young he was at 26 years old, I think, when he first started out. And, and being able to become an advocate for situations that were not fair, right? And to take on a leadership role, despite all the discrimination that you may receive from that. Having that courage to do so, and then to be, and to continue on for those 12 years, I think it was, until the tragic happened. But, just taking in all of those moments of all the courageous people during that time, before my time, before I was born. And so for me, it was a massive history lesson to just really just take it all in. If I had more time, I would have a pen and pad out taking notes the whole way through, right?
Absolutely.
I would invite my children to come and take a look and sit down and really take this all in, because this is history. And I'm thankful that the Civil Rights Museum preserved all this history for guys like myself who wasn't there to live through it, but now I can look and see it. And so for me, being able to see all this and what was accomplished, and then now to give that over to the next generation so they can see and also move forward in that space, So the entire museum was very special to me.
Tommy?
The history of us moving at a time when people thought there wasn't us. But you see, we rally around the freedom of movement. We were killed, we were tortured, killed, hung, talked about, cheated, and profoundly misused. We saw all that history. And I was born during the time of one of the worst, 1944, June 6, 44. And I remember the ledge at the Lorraine Motel. I remember where I was. And I saw that my daddy said, "Didn't I hear a shot?" And I said, "No, Daddy, they were just a balloon popping." Then here I am standing on the ledge where Dr. King's life was taken. And all of the photos, the pictures, the graphs depicted the truth of black folks in this country. Had not been for us working in the mills, working in the trash bins, where would this country be? It wouldn't be what it is now. That was going through my mind the whole time. And when Cheryl brought me back to a photo, and she said, "Tommy, did you know that that photo existed?" And I looked at her and looked at it, and it was before me. So my victory stand pose was not the first time. There were kids before me that did the same thing, but I didn't know it until when? Yesterday. And here I am, pushing 100. I'm just now seeing things. So people out there, no matter how old you are, don't be unaware of there are things that you don't know that you still have to learn, no matter how old you are, no matter what kind of degrees you have. Nothing is bigger than life. Okay, Dolores, I'm gonna quit now.
We have a lot of technology these days. The one thing we don't have is time travel. But if we had time travel, if each of you had the opportunity to sit down with Dr. King, cup of coffee, whatever, what would you want to talk to him about? What would you ask him? What would you want to pick his brain about?
Why? 3 letters, why? And he can pick, or anyone can pick a choice out of why. They'll probably say, why what? But that's simple Tommy, you know, who's done all this so-called educational teaching. I'm still a simple person that love to hear the other folks more than talk myself. Can you believe that?
So you would just ask him why he undertook what he did.
I'd have to back, yeah. I'd want to know why,
Yeah.
or did he think about passing on the opportunity? And what was the compelling force that drove him to definitively say, yes, yes? And what Coretta was saying, are you sure you want to do this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting question. I think in order for someone to be a leader, it has to be an innate feeling inside of that person that drives them to be that leader, right? If not, everyone would be a leader. And so for him to have that leadership role, it was already inside of him. So it wasn't a heavy lift for him, right? I think my conversation would be more so, how do we now create more positive leaders so that way everyone are leaders in their own space? How do you create that type of environment where everyone can be leaders for their community and build the communities one by one, right? That would be a
I like that.
conversation.
Where are we missing the mark today? Where are we missing the mark? What message aren't we putting out and we're receiving? Have we stopped the ability to just listen to one another?
Right.
Are the lines that drawn so deeply in the sand that we refuse to listen, to cooperate with each other?
Yeah.
Have we stopped listening?
100 Black Men of America organization, which I'm a part of, does a lot for kids because they run it throughout the 12 months. And the Thomas Smith Youth Initiative, which I have, and Dolores, engages with the 100 Black Men to create an avenue for the kids to understand what's going on. Usually when people hear black, they want to freeze up because they think the white man is going to come up and lynch us again. See, that's not going to happen. So we have to keep continually moving forward, teaching these kids that they are somebody. They owe it to society to do something about what has happened so it won't be tempted to engage in their minds again that it will happen. You know, we have kids. Their minds have to be programmed. Otherwise, we're going to have the street wars that we're having still. It ain't cool to kill. But people miss the idea that living is difficult, especially as a black man, a black woman. And we have to fight for that, to get up. We have to smile when it's not a easy thing to do. You must fight. Wars are not easy. You have something to say about that?
I mean, I completely agree with you, and I think having positive leadership, right, is very important. You know, everyone can be leaders in their own space, but if you're not positive, then it's a false leadership. And I think that's important to give over to the youth is be well groomed, be kind to your neighbors, have acts of kindness, and all these things, and be a positive influence in your community. And I think that's how we can change our communities.
This conversation could go on forever, and unfortunately we're limited a little bit by time, but I want to thank you all for your insight and sharing some very powerful thoughts today. How about a round of applause for our honorees? We'd like to thank them. We'd also like to thank Dr. Russ Wigginton, president of the National Civil Rights Museum, for guiding the museum and taking one of Memphis's greatest tragedies into its most powerful lesson, and for introducing us to also some remarkable young people who are doing amazing work here in Memphis. Also want to thank the Hyde Family Foundation. Barbara, Pitt, thank you so much for your continued support, not only of the symposium, but of the museum as well. Really hope that our conversations here have resonated with you, with things that you can take back into the local community, that you can share with your friends, your families, your coworkers, and your peers. We hope that this was meaningful for you, and we look forward to the presentation of the award at pregame this afternoon, and also the game between the Memphis Grizzlies and the Minnesota Timberwolves. And with that, we're going to toss it to Grizzlies Live, Rob Fisher and Brevin Knight.
All right, thank you very much, Pete. We appreciate it. That was the 20th annual Earl Lloyd Sports Legacy Symposium presented by the Hyde Family Foundation. Rob Fisher and Brevin Knight with you, wrapping up this hour before we get you to Grizzlies Live, getting you set for the Grizzlies and the Timberwolves here this afternoon. It was great, as it is year in and year out. And I think the thing that stood out was when Cheryl Miller started talking about visiting the National Civil Rights Museum.
Yeah, you can see how she got emotional when she was talking about it, and rightfully so. The other big thing that I took away, what everyone talked about, was courage. And you talk about Dr. King and what he had to endure and what civil rights leaders had to endure during those times. It took a lot of courage to step out every day and continue to fight the good fight. Well, that same courage is what these honorees have talked about, same courage that people are going to take today in these times to continue to try to do the things that are right. Not the things that you think will keep you in the right position, but will you do the things that are hard that will do something that impacts someone else's lives. And so the courage thing resonated with me on how it was then, and courage is what it's going to take now for things to get better.
And a new addition this year to the symposium as well was meeting some young Memphians who are trying to make a difference and continue the legacy of Dr. King.
Listen, I was blown away. And the thing, I looked over to my wife, Dina, and I told her, I said, I want to get all three of their names because I want to see what can we do to continue to help them in what they're doing in their schools. Because the thing that we talk about, even when we talk about the 4 scholars, we talk about how special these young people are. No way that I would have been in any shape or form ready to talk like these kids were talking. It was fantastic.
It was a great afternoon, the start of a great afternoon. Still much more to come, including the National Civil Rights Museum Sports Legacy Awards presented by Ford and your Mid-South Ford dealers. And then the 23rd annual Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration game between the Grizzlies and the T-Wolves. Grizzlies Live comes your way next here on FanDuel Sports Network.